Hey guys, it's El Supersonic Q here with another episode of the In-Depth series. I actually forget what episode number this is, but maybe that's for the better because it just shows how long it's been since an episode, I think. Like I said, try not to spam these, but being more inventive, so I decided to revisit another set as we did with the Sonic the Fighter set. We're going to look at the Majora's Mask set for a second time. So, yeah, this might be a little bit out of order with how I said I was going to kind of air things in my update video, but I decided to kind of keep my Q&A question submission period open until the end of this week. So on Sunday night, I'm going to close that. And I thought that we needed a video in between that and the chalk, so I decided on this. Plus, we're already at the halfway point of summer, so I mean, wow, summer's already half over, but we're going to make the best of what's left. So here's our video. Alright, just like I do when I revisit sets, I typically like to go into a little bit more detail, kind of detailing the detail. So I'm going to start with kind of the foundations of the set. So as I said before, the first time I reviewed this set pretty much came about from the actual Majora's Mask figures, like, you know, the actual action figures that I think, Epoch or whatever made? Yeah, so back when I used to avidly collect or whatever, and I was kind of first discovering all those the Zelda figures and the Metroid figures and all the stuff that existed that I didn't have. I really liked the Majora's Mask figures, but what I didn't like was how expensive and how sought after and rare they were. And I think I just probably just having the thought that I would never really want to spend that much money on them. I never really, could find them anyway when they were on eBay. They were monstrous amounts of money. So just all kind of those factors working against me, I decided, well, I'm a sculptor, why not make my own? So that's kind of what I did, and the first three, I'll probably break this setup into kind of parts, because each of the characters kind of has their own separate part to the larger set. But, you know, just kind of being a sculptor and wanting to make my own set, and probably playing a little bit of Majora's Mask at the time too. I think I was still progressing through the game because I didn't have it on Nintendo 64. I had it on the bonus disc that came with my GameCube. So that's how these first three guys got started. I wanted the figures, knew I wasn't going to be able to buy them, was a sculptor, so I naturally sculpted them. I believe these three were all at the same time. I want to say they were probably on the same day, actually, from what I remember. But let's take a look at each of them individually. So, Deku Link is, I would say this is a pretty stereotypical kind of El Supersonic Q sculpt circa maybe, 2008, 7, something like that. Because the detail is basic, the colors are right, but again, kind of with the stuff like Deku Link he's big in the sense that, like, his head is big, but he's just not tall. But I probably thought that if I was to make him with a big head, he would naturally be a little bit taller. And I didn't want that because I was just making these three models, so I figured make a small Deku Link, a moderately sized Goron Link. I like this Goron Link. Again, kind of just a regular, stereotypical, I don't know if it's just stereotypical, but, kind of, maybe not stereotypical, but just regular, typical model. Because, again, kind of all the same specs as I said with Deku Link, except I kind of like this. I used black clay to kind of outline his stomach and stuff, and I kind of like that. A technique I haven't really, I kind of haven't used since this that I can remember, and a technique I don't think I used a whole lot around, at least around this time, maybe in my earlier sculpting I did. So I kind of like that. But again, this is before I started painting and stuff, and nowadays I'd probably just put some clay over it and kind of make it look more like a stomach in terms of depth rather than just a straight on appearance. But that's Goron Link again in scale with the Deku Link, and then Zora Link, who I want to say is probably my favorite of the three right here, as well as my favorite model to this entire set. I just think it's kind of in the face alone and the color. Definitely such a nice blue that I don't even know if you can really buy anymore, but it's kind of metallic, kind of not. The face has really nice eyes and some pretty cool, kind of color fading, I guess, like the green kind of, melded into the blue. And like I said before, the wings I kind of complain about because they're not exactly, kind of like faded into each other, but I just didn't have that technique at the time, so. So that was kind of these three I wanted to focus on, because again, based off the figures, the actual figure set has these three, so I wanted to kind of, um, make those Zelda characters of the figures, and these three were the ones, because they're kind of the main point of Majora's Mask. So, yeah, just a small set in itself with these three guys, sculpted all around or all, like I said, on the same day. Probably, as I said, around, I would say, I'm trying to think, because the video game clay figure model videos are a really good indication of when I made stuff. I think the fourth one featured the Young Link, and that was, I want to say, 2010, maybe. And the first one did feature the Zora Link, and then the second one had those two. So I would say probably, I would say probably 2007, 2008, just to kind of make sure on that time. So yeah, that was these guys. Next, I wanted to kind of make a Link model. At this point, I don't believe I actually made a very nice Link model, and I wanted to kind of make a refined one. So I kind of, not really because I had sculpted these three, but because I just kind of liked the Majora's Mask artwork. I remember I printed off a sheet with Link with the Razor Sword. I wanted something a little bit different. So that's how this guy kind of came along, and that's why he's a little bit bigger than everybody else, because he didn't actually go to the set when I was sculpting him. I kind of just wanted to make one. I probably had the idea because I had these three, so why not make a young Link, as well as kind of the real, figure line having a Link in it. But from what I believe, it was probably more like, oh, let's make a young Link from Majora's Mask. So this was technically the only spot-on model to the set if you're going off of video game clay figure models terminology, which I would kind of still believe, yeah, he's probably the only spot-on model, really. I remember I spent a lot of time kind of on the face and on the Razor Sword and the shield and stuff. Just overall a pretty nice presentation, just like most of these models, and again, they were made a long time ago, as I've kind of said by now, but I could probably do a whole lot better if I was to resculpt these, but for the time, pretty good. The sword holder not having detail, I don't know if that's because it didn't, or if that's because I just assumed that it, like, kind of didn't. But, yeah. The face, kind of cartoony, but I think it makes up, the hair at least makes up for it. I kind of like that hair. The hat swoop, which I'm kind of signature for now in my links. And the overall, I guess, kind of, not size, but proportion. It's a pretty good proportion. So, yeah, there was Link. And then at this point, I had made these four, and I think at this point, I was pretty much like, yeah, I'm going to make a Majora's Mask set, because I, have four of them already. And at around this time, First Four Figures was actually coming out with their Fierce Deity figure, and that's a little bit of the inspiration for sculpting this one, at least in the pose he's in. So yeah, I wanted to make a Fierce Deity after I decided that these guys were going to be part of the set, because Fierce Deity was one of the masks that Link wore in the game, so I wanted to make one. And again, I pretty much more or less copied First Four Figures kind of posture and stuff, but the face and the overall body and stuff, I don't know, I can't really criticize this stuff too much, because from what I remember, honestly, this was around the time, this and the next model actually, or around the time that I was trying to get a video game clay figure model video out. I think it was the sixth one. And you guys probably know, I'm sure you've done it yourself, how you gotta get something done, so you kind of rush it a little bit, not make it as good as you could have. So I feel like this model and the next one kind of reflect that a little bit. I was definitely running out of clay, not something I really could have, kind of made up for, because at this point I kind of just worked with what I had. I didn't avidly go out and buy clay. I think this was around probably 2010 or so. That's what I would say. So I just worked with whatever I had, and he ended up kind of being a little bit skinny and stuff, and not having a lot of detail on the back, because I didn't go in the game or go online and look for 360 artworks like I do now. I kind of just went with the basic, kind of artwork with the game, and just kind of made stuff up for the back. That's probably why Link didn't have much detail on his sword holder. But I did include the stands on his feet, because I definitely wanted to make this stand up. And he does stand up. And if you kind of go off of these five, it's a pretty nice kind of scale, I guess, aside from Goron Link being slightly smaller than everybody else. But, I mean, that's a pretty good scale. And then again, because I wanted to kind of At this point, it was kind of weird because now that I think about it, and at least in terms of today's standards, I probably, well, I shouldn't say I wouldn't, but I would probably be more reluctant to continue a set avidly. Whereas, it's like, all right, I have these five, it's Link, the masks, that's perfect. Why continue? But then back then, I kind of wanted to either because I needed more models for my videos, or I just wanted to go bigger is better. I decided to sculpt the Mask Salesman, which, just for the record, I know a lot of people think the Mask Salesman is a really creepy Zelda character. I kind of like him. I don't know if that's just because in the game, well, first off, I never really made him mad to the point where his eyes would get big and he'd like shake you. But I think it was because at the end of the game when he does his kind of he does that monologue about saying goodbyes and stuff. I really like that, so I kind of like the character. He's just kind of, I don't know. I mean, he's creepy, but he's like kind of like cool creepy. I don't know. Anyway, so again, because I said I was kind of rushing at this point. Mask Salesman is pretty much as big as Fierce Deity. Actually, he's not a bad scale with Link, but again, like the Goron Link being really small. His head keeps bobbling, which is really weird because I guess I put a toothpick in, but it came loose, but it's not entirely loose, so it doesn't come off, but it just bobbles. I don't know. Maybe they're just fitting for the character, I guess. His head kind of to the side. Yeah, there are a few aspects of this model I like and a few I don't. One is kind of the hands, how I position the hands like that. It just kind of looks natural like he does in the game. This kind of texturing on the back, kind of his packs and stuff with these masks, the Mario Easter egg mask, yeah. Just kind of make it look a little bit more realistic with the fabric. But stuff I don't really like is I feel like the face I could, well, just like all things, which is kind of a given at this point, I could sculpt it a lot better today. But I just feel like the face could have been better if I took a little bit more time. I remember I was having trouble with his smile, so I kind of cut some of it off. And then, I don't know, just kind of his legs and stuff. I remember I did have some trouble with trying to get him to stand up, so I had to compromise, I guess, some, detail on his legs and just kind of making it look a little bit better. But I guess it's not bad. I mean, he does kind of stand up kind of like, I guess what I'm looking for is I would have liked, a little more hunched over, but I had to compromise that because I needed him to stand up, which he doesn't do very well, and he actually leans against Fierce Deity when he's on my table, my clay table, but hopefully he won't fall. And then the final model, which was probably the biggest surprise of them all, when I revealed this in the video game Clay model video, as well as kind of to myself, because I figure I went this far, made a Mask Salesman and a Fierce Deity, which didn't go to the original Majora's Mask figure set, as well as having a Link that I wasn't planning for the first three models, and the whole game pretty much revolves around this bad guy, and that was, if I can get the mask on, that was Skull Kid. So yeah, this I'm pretty sure I went out and bought separate clay just to sculpt him, because aside from wanting to finish this set really bad, I had that, if you guys remember from one of my prototype videos, I showed off that Skull Kid that was really kind of, I'm glad I really didn't finish it because it was really kind of messy, really rushed. The Majora's Mask didn't look good because he was made the same day that these two guys were. So again, with that whole kind of, the more models I make a day, the worse each of them gets because I just lose steam. So that guy was really messed up, and I was out of clay, actually. That's why I ended up not finishing him. Either that or I was just really tired. Probably a matter of both. But because I put him in the bag and I could not salvage him a few days later, whenever I decided to kind of revive him, I decided to go out, buy some new colors, sculpt an entirely new one, which is really, really nice. I really like the colors. I think out of all the characters in this set, the Skull Kid is the most eye-appealing in terms of color. It just looks really nice, and I kind of had that feature with the toothpick where you can take his mask off and see his kind of duck face or whatever he actually has. But yeah, really nice hat, kind of how this, all the little circles and all, how this kind of swoops over. Really pretty good posturing, actually. I probably just did that because I wanted to make him stand up, but I actually kind of like how he looks kind of just mysterious, Kind of a happy accident there. I wish the mask stayed on a little bit better, but it doesn't really. So, aside from that, yeah. And he's in, again, this is kind of the really weird scale thing, because he's bigger than Young Link. Well, he was in the game, I think. But he's just as big as the Happy Mask Salesman and Fierce Deity, almost, so. Yeah. Wish I could kind of position these guys better, but yeah. That's kind of the best I could do, and probably gonna fall over again. Alright. I just don't want that to fall. Alright, I think that's good, maybe. So that was the revisit of the Majora's Mask set, kind of the why to the set, not so much the how. Um, wow, Skull Kid, I'm just gonna kind of leave him down there. You saw him, so yeah. I decided to give this set another look because over time I always think of more stuff to say to these sets and stuff, and I'm kind of glad I actually saved this video for now because I ended up actually recording it a couple weeks ago, but I didn't really like the recording, thought it was kind of rambling, didn't get to my point, and I think I accidentally deleted it after I put it out either on my computer or deleted it from my camera by accident, so I kind of had to record it anyway, but this is really nice revisit. I want to say this is one of my longest to finish sets. Sonic R, I think, still holds that record for I don't even know how many years. I have to actually. I think that was like maybe 5 years or something. This is probably like around 3 years. Well, no, because I just said, 2009, 7. No, I finished it around, 10? So maybe 4 years. I don't know. Sonic R was still like 5, 6 years. That was still the longest. So thanks for watching, guys. I'm El Supersonic Q, and I will have more videos in the coming weeks. Thanks for watching. Finn.